Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Michael, I love you so much.
Off from my city, off from my home. We're flying up no ceiling when we in our zone. I got
Hi, Amber. Hi, Carrie. Good to see you. Hi, Rachel. There's Jennifer. I should be in Thailand with Jennifer. Hi, Sahara and Suba. Thank you for being here. Just imagine. Everybody, hello, welcome. Do me a favor, think about this prompt that I have on the screen, which is if you had to rate yourself on a scale of 1 through 10, 10 being the highest, what would you rate yourself as the ease of facilitating a meeting? You're not going to put it in the chat yet, but I want you to think about ease of facilitation or how comfortable you are at facilitation. How would you rate yourself? And you might be saying, Nancy, I don't have a criteria. We're not using a criteria today. We're just going to have your own. What does your heart say when someone says you get to present? And I wonder if that number would change knowing the size of the group. Does it matter facilitating to 7 versus 500? Or does it matter facilitating to a group that are your colleagues versus a group of people that you don't know? Which one is easier as well? I think all those variables we'll take into account as we enter meeting mayhem. So thank you for taking the time to be here. I'm going to start right within about 1 minute. I love this phrase, which I think some of you may have heard me say, no penalty for the punctual. That's from Michael Wilkinson. He's a great influencer and a facilitator. So if you want a facilitator that you want to just get some ideas from, Michael Wilkinson is brilliant. So guess what, everybody? It is now exactly, it's 10 o'clock my time. So do me a favor, just in the chat right now, just say hi and where you are in the world. I like to see globally, and I know we do it at every virtual, but I just like to see where people are. And if you want, you can give the time of the day before we start. And thank you. I already see some comments in there saying, Amber, I love Amber. I was in another course with Amber. We have Rachel from Switzerland. Thank you. Glad to be. Oh, Taiwan. Wow. Bucharest, Bangkok. Wonderful. I thought Malta, of course, Michael from Malta. Lovely. Okay, everybody. When we are, for today's session, I'm going to put a link, and actually Abby is going to put a link in the chat, which has a slide deck for all of our links for today. My name is Nancy Squicciarini, and I am a facilitator for ECIS, which I feel privileged to be part of this organization. And one of my real passions is learning how to facilitate. So this workshop today is not just, it's really about sharing what we do well, but also giving what I've learned from looking at other facilitators. Now, the chat has the link. Give me a thumbs up if you're able to access that link. Wonderful. You're already getting a little takeaway from today's session is these shared links. We love that. Don't you love you leave something? It's like a goodie bag or like swag. This is the swag of virtual. I love that. I never even thought of that. The swag of virtual. We need things like that. Sorry, I don't have a pen or a bag to give you, but it's still okay. All right, everybody. So our virtual, when looking at our, I love always reviewing these protocols that we have when working in a virtual setting. This is an opportunity to meet people, exchange email addresses. So if you're in a breakout room and you see someone who's just fabulous, you might say, you know what? I just love Jennifer. I know she's in Bangkok. I would love to learn more because she provided some great insight during our breakout session. Write to her, get her email address. We're also on social media, and I will show you our new LinkedIn group engagement, we're a small group, so we can unmute. But for the breakout rooms, could you please just put your camera on? It's so nice to see everyone's beautiful eyes and face, if you're able to. And also when we're in the breakout room, remember equal voice. This is the LinkedIn group that I mentioned. It's pretty new. It is for middle leaders. This is the Middle Leader Café, and we're really proud of this group. We're getting great engagement in terms of people sharing articles. Also, if you have an event that you would like to share with this group, and please, this is open to everyone. Middle leaders, this is just a beautiful opportunity to really get that engagement with like-minded people who have the same role as you do. All right, so did everyone think of your number that if you were to rate yourself, what would it be on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of your ease of facilitating a meeting? So put your number in the chat, but don't press return yet, because we're going to do a chat cascade to see all the numbers that we have. Are we ready? Okay, so on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, please press return and let's look. So we have a range going from 3 to 7 to 6. We're pretty high though. Another 7, a 3, 7, 6, 7, 10, 3, 5. Okay, we have a range from 3 to 8. So we have some comfort here. So I have a feeling we have some experienced facilitators. So when we do get into our breakout room, this is a time to share our strategies. So the title of this session is Meeting Mayhem, Turning Mundane into Memorable. And these are our objectives. What do we hope to achieve during this next hour or so? First, to get some insight about the Facilitator's Mindset. Number 2, a brief introduction to the heart, the head, and the hands approach to facilitation. And lastly, to appreciate the various profiles that we have in a meeting. Wondering why are meetings so important, and what is it that we need to engage in terms of perspectives and validating those individuals who are in the room. I just love this quote from Peter DeWitt, and just take a minute. And I'm wondering, does this resonate with you? I'll give you a minute to read it. And he states, there's a reality that there are many educators sitting in a workshop and wondering why they're there. Your numbers indicate 8, 7, 10, that you're at an ease for facilitation. Wonderful, because we know from all, I can give you all the research, but this is the quote that means the most to me in terms of what Barkowski says. We know when we get our staff together, when we get teams together, it is the patterns of adult interaction that influence climate and instruction outcomes. We know that. So facilitation is a skill that is a necessity for any leader who is trying to elevate those perspectives, ensure equal voice, and I love the word of bringing humanity to a collaboration. And that is due to how you, the individual, the leader, the team lead, the teacher facilitates those meetings. So let's go to our first objective, which is to gain insight of the facilitator's workshop. And the first, I guess my first provocation is, does any of you know what a facilitator's mindset means? If you do, give a thought in the chat right now. What do you think a facilitator's mindset means before we can go into this first objective? If you want to put your thoughts in the chat. What is a facilitator's mindset? And let's see if we have any thoughts or anybody brave enough to put it out there. What is a facilitator? Synergy. Thank you, Tiffany. Well said. You got some thumbs up on that one. Any other thoughts of a stance you take as the role in beautiful, Rena beautifully said, in guiding and furthering the group's goals. Absolutely. Well said. An approach to bring of open-mindedness and flexible and being prepared. Okay, Nicola, beautiful job. And you're all right. That is a facilitator's mindset. And when we think about the reason as to why a facilitator's mindset is so important, I want to introduce you to the model by Sam Cannon. Has anybody ever seen this model before? Do me a favor, give a thumbs up if you've seen this model. I love this model. And if you go to Google, you can just find different versions of it, but they're pretty much is the same. Why is facilitation so important? When we start off with a problem or a situation, which is to the left, we get all these ideas. We get these perspectives, we get different opinions, we get, sometimes people make early conclusions, but we have all these ideas. And we want those ideas. We want to embrace those different perspectives. We want to ensure that people feel like they have a voice to share. But at one point, and you can see in between divergent and emergent, we as a facilitator, we're going to reach the groan zone. And that is a standstill where we're not moving forward. And if you notice to the right-hand side, a solution. And you as a facilitator have to have those structures and protocols to then progress your group into convergent. Convergent means reaching a solution, getting to a closure. Have you ever been in a meeting where you brought up another issue, then another issue, and you're like, are we talking about this again? Because you're stuck in the groan zone. There is where you need to implement those strategies, the protocols, to get those conversations to move towards a closure. If not, teams can stay in a groan zone for a length of time, and that causes frustration, resentment, or even the opposite. People just shut down. They won't engage anymore. They're saying, this is a waste of my time. I don't need to be part of this conversation, because you're stuck in the groan zone. So all of you who are facilitators, that's your gift. You have those strategies to move those individuals from divergent, you welcome those perspectives, to convergent, going back to a solution to your regular problem. How do you feel about that? Right now, do me a favor. Give me 3 words in the chat that summarizes, 3 words that summarize what I just shared about the groan zone. Any 3 words that if you had to summarize what the groan zone is, what would you say about the groan zone? Growth, absolutely. Thank you. What else about the groan zone? Thank you, Rachel. Do not stay there. Absolutely, Jennifer. And we need to know as facilitators, we have to get them out. Raina, you have to get them unstuck. You're absolutely right. Admit that, oh, who said admit that it exists? Beautifully. Nicola, we have to admit it. And that is where you get your authenticity as a facilitator, to acknowledge that and to move them out of that groan zone. And with that, and Amber, beautifully, stand still, you need those protocols. And facilitation is a skill that can be practiced. I still learn every time I go into a conference. I'm learning how to facilitate. I go to a certain room, I'm not looking at the content, I'm looking at how the room is navigated. Growth, beautiful. Groundhog Day. Oh, I love that, Louise. Louise, nice to see you, honey. Moving towards solution, absolutely. So what does that have to do with facilitation? I want to share with you this book, which I think is probably one of the best books for teacher leaders when it comes to facilitation. And I just love this. First of all, what is facilitation? The goal to increase that quality of collaboration, which all of you mentioned. And also, it gains, you want to have that enhanced understanding. And that's what this book does. It talks about the power of facilitation. And then what the book does, it talks about the effects of the mindset and to recognize them, which actually you started to do by acknowledging the groan zone in terms of growth. So let me introduce the Facilitator's Mindset, which you need in order to move out of that groan zone to work towards that solution. So there are 5 growth. There's 5, and I'll introduce each one. The first one, the first mindset of a facilitator is the lens. And what that means is you see the group as they could be, a lens of improvement. Now, let me put this in the context of a school. Do you ever work with a certain group and you're like, oh no, I don't want to work with this group because they're always so negative? That's not the facilitator's mindset. You have to think of positivity. Think of them through a lens of an improvement, and your role is to guide them through improvement. Always think of that positive intent and how you can lead them to that improvement. The next is the area of, as a facilitator, you always need to be prepared. That means you need to be spontaneous and you need to improvise. I was at a workshop the other day and I realized that it was about 2:30. People were tired. It was after lunch, and I realized the protocol I was going to use wouldn't work. So I'm thinking, okay, I need to change this right now. And I just put it aside, and I actually told them, listen, guys, you're tired. This protocol won't work. We're going to change it up right now. And I knew I had to make that connection with my group to show them that I'm aware of how they're feeling. So, and if something's not working, don't attack. Just acknowledge, perhaps this is feedback I needed. The other is the idea of consent. That means, as a facilitator, how do you make the group feel safe? Are you being perceived as authentic and competent? The next is the idea of embrace conflict. We want to have those perspectives. We want to have cognitive conflict in terms of getting those ideas, and also a conflict can actually lead to more learning. It can illuminate a problem that maybe we weren't aware of, and we're always seeking those solutions. So when there is a conflict in facilitation, how do you navigate that conflict without shutting it down, but also acknowledging it to the group? And the last is always, we absolutely recognize that diversity enriches. We seek those different views, we seek those opinions, and we honor different ways of thinking. So throughout the next 40 minutes or so, anytime I show you a strategy, I'm going to connect it to a mindset. So you can see that alignment between the strategies we're talking about and the mindset. So those are the 5 mindsets. Now, in your slide deck, you have a slide just like this. How do I know you have this slide? There's a small yellow icon on the right-hand side, and that tells you have this slide. This slide includes an article about the 5 mindsets, and it also includes strategies from adaptive schools. Because with that book I showed you, the Facilitator's Mindset, it talks about each mindset and also strategies that would support that mindset and elevating it and promoting it. So please take a moment and go through that. All right, so let's take a break and think about, we talked about the grown area and the mindset. And now we're going to move into the second objective, and then you guys are going to go into a breakout room to start unpacking. So the second objective is the idea of the heart, the head, and the hands approach to facilitation. Now, according to the association, the Interaction Association for Facilitators, they talk about effective facilitation balances these 3 areas: results, relationships, and process. I'm going to make that terminology a little bit easier and move it into the idea of every facilitation that you have should always have a heart. That means you're connecting, you're building a community. Every facilitation you have should have the hands, and every facilitation should have the head. Let me unpack that a little bit further before you meet with each other. So when looking at the heart, the head, and the hands, and use this as a criteria. Next time you have a meeting, think about it and say, do I first have the heart of this meeting? And what does the heart refer to? It refers to the idea of how are you creating an inclusive environment? And that comes with intentionality. How are you promoting an atmosphere that encourages participation? How do you validate different opinions? How do you set ground rules? And most importantly, How do you develop that community of learners? For me, it's the idea of, and I'm using this word again, humanity. How do you elevate that expertise in the room? And many times, this is where you might hear the term, you would use a icebreaker. And my dear friend Michael knows what I feel about icebreakers versus inclusion activity. I am a big supporter of inclusion activities. Those are activities that have a learning objective designed to it. Occasionally, to me, icebreakers, they can be viewed as a waste of time by your staff. When you think about it, it might be a Wednesday meeting, everyone's exhausted. Do they really want to talk about their favorite pet? Inclusion activities are based upon what is the purpose of that meeting and how do you start elevating that idea of getting, let's just say, designing those intentionalities, preparing them, and also getting that community of learners. Adaptive Schools is brilliant for this, but think about, and the inclusion activity doesn't have to be 20 minutes. I've already done my inclusion activity. Somebody put in the chat, what was the inclusion activity or the heart that I did to start this virtual facilitation? What was it? You can put in the chat. What did I do? What was my heart already? Absolutely. Thank you, Michael. For numbers 1 through 10, Jennifer, I asked, can you please, I wanted you to start thinking about what the purpose of this meeting was about facilitation. I wanted you already reflecting about yourself as a facilitator. The typical inclusion activity is also what most people do. I asked where you are, what time it is, where you are. That was just to start off, but the true inclusion activity was those numbers. It literally took 2 minutes, but it already had us building our community of learners. The next is the idea of a community of learners is the head. When it comes to the head, those are your objectives. That's the learning. That's when it comes to what are you trying to achieve? But it's also an understanding of the context and culture of your cohort. It's also the idea of how do you promote inquiry? And lastly, how do you balance the content and strategies to get people to really share their insight and their opinions? So think of this as a conceptual understandings. When you get a group of people together, and it's the end of the day, and if we're talking, I always love this example, how the tables are going to be set up for the international luncheon. The head of your meeting is quite weak. Are those really the big learnings that we're getting educators together for? Couldn't that be done in email? So that is really the big learning. And the last is the idea of the hands. And the hands, this is where when someone leaves a meeting, they want to know, how does this apply to me? How is this going to affect me as an educator? It's the takeaways. What was the hands that I have provided you so far? What hands have I provided you in terms of this hour? What have I provided you in terms of the slides? Exactly. So you leave the session not thinking, that was a waste of my time. Why am I here? You actually have a takeaway. And it's relevant to impact student learning, as we already justified, and it's summarizing, and it's shared resources. Okay, I think now, remember I said each time I'm going to share this mindset, the heart, the hands, and the head. What it does is it gives group consent. It shows that you will be perceived as authentic and competent. So now let's go into a breakout room. All right, everybody, time, and this is a good 10 minutes, and there's only going to be 3 in a room, maybe 1 group of 4. So please find this slide on your slide deck, because we're now going to be talking about what are some strategies. So we're going to breakout room 1, and this is what we're working on. What strategies, approaches positively impact effectiveness of a meeting? And then how does the head, the heart, hands framework provide you almost like a checklist or an audit of your own practices? So in your groups of 3, you can have a timekeeper to keep track of time, and And everyone is going to be writing on the slide. And let me show you what your slide looks like. It's pretty much a generate, sort, and connect. So 3 people, 3 colors. If you have 4, there is another slide for the 4. You're first going to generate strategies that you currently use that you feel are effective in a meeting. No more than 5. So you might say, I don't know, think, pair, share. You might say the 4 C's or the 4 L's or the 4 B's. And then you will move and sort. So the first part, you're doing it alone, 2 minutes alone. Then you're going to share your strategies with each other and start putting them into categories. And then you're going to label each category. And you might say, Nancy, some of them overlap. They will, because every strategy and protocol you use should be based upon a purpose. So they could be shared. So let me stop share for a minute. How are we doing? Are we good? Do we know what we're doing? Yes. Okay. So what's great about this is you might get some strategies from somebody they're like, I never even thought of that. So Abby, can you please put 3 in a group? And please note, if you do have 4, I made an extra slide for another color. So Abby, we're going to go for 10 minutes and it is 3 in a group. And thank you, Abby. And make sure you introduce yourselves and say hello. And hopefully, and all the directions are written on the slide. If you have any questions, just, you can just say, I need help and I can come join your room. Okay. So Abby, are you ready?
Yep.
Thank you, dear. 3 in a room, please. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Oh, I love this recording. I hate being recorded. I really do. Because I don't think I have a New York accent, but when you hear yourself in a recording, it's like, wow, I'm like Rocky Balboa's daughter. It's really... We have about 10 more seconds before everyone comes back. I hope you found
back in Luxembourg now?
Yeah, I got home. Everything went perfectly getting back. I had like a 7 o'clock flight on Sunday, so I was home by 8:30, which was great.
Nice.
And Luxembourg's so small, you get back and forth from the airport like in 20 minutes. It's perfect.
Nice.
Anybody want to share not just about what you did, but how you did it? So I was just telling Miranda that what I like about this strategy with virtual is that everyone has to engage in the breakout room. You see what I mean? Where you have, each one is assigned a color, and the idea that you are getting your hands, this toolkit, once you leave. Any thoughts? Hi, Louise, so good to see you. Any thoughts about the process before I move on to our final objective, about the process? And you have all the strategies there. Any thoughts about the process? You can just unmute and share, please.
It was collaborative and communicative. Everyone agreed fairly quickly what we had to do.
Oh, that's great. And sometimes if you don't agree, that's okay. You wonder why. Why didn't that work out? These are great. I've gotten these from people that I've watched. So none of this is my original thought. I just love to steal from people. And this is how I get my own toolkit. The other idea is, even when you're doing virtual facilitation or on site, did you notice I had a breakout slide that talks about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're doing it? That really helps in facilitation, because many times virtual, the presenter shows the slide telling you what you have to do. And then you get to the breakout room, you're like, wait a minute, what are we doing? Did anybody take a picture? So that's why this slide deck is a little bit more intentional of ensuring that everyone has an understanding of what we're doing. Okay, I hope it went well. Nicola, please.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say that whenever you do this kind of stuff, Nancy, it makes me think, actually, this is the kind of stuff I do in the classroom, but often don't think about doing with adults in meetings. It's like, well, not actually that much difference in some ways.
No, it really isn't. It's intentionality and ensuring that everyone has a common understanding of the task. Absolutely. Thank you, Nicola. All right, everyone. We're just going to go to our final objective, which is the idea of, oops, sorry, I have too many screens open. Objective 3, making sure I have objective 3 open. And Let's just get this done. All right, now we're looking at objective 3. I do want to go one back because I want to show, sorry. Objective 3. Let me make sure I have. Oh, guess what, guys? I'm showing you I'm going to stop share. So this is known as messing up. Because you know what I did? Guess what I'm showing you? The participant slide deck. So this is where you just make believe that. See, when you are doing on site, what's great, when you make a mistake on site, what do you tell people? Everybody, why don't you talk to your partner for about 2 minutes and think about what resonated with you? And then you can hide your mistake. Here, everyone's just looking at you and you're like, wow, I get out of this one. All right, let me get the participants. I apologize for that. And pull that up. Okay, here we go, everybody. Thank you. All right. Thank you for your understanding. Everyone's so kind. We've all done it, especially when I have too many slide decks going on. Remember what I mentioned, that throughout the session, we're going to talk about what mindset was elevated during that task. So for this, when working with the hands, the heart, and the head, for you to think of your strategies, that gets you prepared. That's making you able to have to improvise just in case something is not working. You'll already have some type of strategy or protocol in your mind in order to make that connection more authentic. So let's move into various profiles that you can have in a meeting. And I just love this quote, the idea of recognizing your audience and be humble in terms of what may be something burning for you as a facilitator might not be the utmost to the team. And how do we then navigate those different personalities? Because when you have a meeting, you have some individuals who are like, yes, 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 I love meetings. I can't wait to go. Okay, maybe not. Actually, I do love meetings. I just think they're great. But you do have some people that they're really enjoying. They're looking forward to this collaboration. Then you have others that might be like, do we really have to meet? Why are we meeting? What's the purpose? What are we doing? And then we have this. Have I had people sleep through my session? Absolutely. A friend of mine once recorded it to show her. She wanted me to know how engaging I was. Yes, they slept. Or it was, I was in Zurich this weekend and I talked about, sometimes people have those long blinks. Do you ever see a long blink where they go like this? I've done that. And sometimes the blink doesn't go away. You're like, so, but I want to go back to the idea that in my heart, I believe people always have positive intentions. And we have to think, why are people, let's say, sleeping during my session? I can't put it all on the individual. I also have to think of what I'm doing as a facilitator, the timing. Was it after lunch? Never show a video after lunch because everyone's just going to sleep once you shut the lights off. And I also believe that the internal state of people are understood without words. And what that's referring to is just the body language. You can tell, and that is something as a facilitator, you have to measure to see how are they reacting? How are they engaging? That is something that we have to do. And especially when looking at culture and context of our schools and recognizing that when facilitating. So going back to another mindset, regardless of what, and thinking about positivity, the mindset that we're focusing on now is see the group as they could be. Even if they're sleeping, even if you feel like they're bored, take it through a lens of improvement and then also use that as a reflection on you. What do I need to do as a facilitator to get the engagement? Now, I just love this model. And this model is the idea, this is Cantor's 4-play model. And what he talks about is, and this is a generalization I know, but it really helps me when I think about facilitation. When I look at certain people, so Cantor talks about that no one of these players is better than another. And actually, in fact, all these roles are necessary for a team in order to operate efficiently. And you as a facilitator, it's useful to know how to work with each one of these behaviors. And also every one of them have a strength, even though initially you might not think so. So for example, the mover. The mover is the person who they want to get going, they offer direction, and sometimes people see movers as annoying. Like, okay, or we have all these ideas, but your ideas are brilliant, but we really need to consolidate. They might be in the grown zone. You have to be able to use a protocol in order to move them into the right direction. But without movers, you won't have those different directions. So movers are a positive on a team. They initiate with ideas, they offer direction, and we want movers. That's a necessity. The other idea is we want followers. Other people follow, they complete what's said. And without followers, nothing will get done. And by the way, you can Google this model as well. It's brilliant. And then this is what I love. People think bystanders is a negative. They're not a negative. Bystanders are almost like getting that perspective. They look around the room, and just because someone isn't speaking doesn't mean they're not thinking. So we want bystanders because they take a notice, and then when they do speak, you know they're taking in that bigger perspective. And the last, which most people think are opposers, we want everyone to be harmonious. We want opposers. We want people to challenge and to validate, and we want the idea that we embrace that cognitive conflict. And those four, so next time you go to a meeting, think about the people that are in your collaboration. Think about the idea of, was that an opposer, a bystander, a follower? And they're all essential for effective facilitation. And to recognize that the mindset here, when looking at these four different types of roles that you could have within your team, is that you want to embrace conflict. Remember, my goal by the end of the session is to reinforce each mindset. When you look at these four, the mover, the bystander, the opposer, you as a facilitator, you want to embrace and never let go of the idea that you can have a crisis or a challenge, but that might be leading to more learning. Because, for example, it's possible for a mover and an opposer to disagree and present and actually hinder the team from making progress. So your job as a facilitator is to get them out of that zone, because the mover and the opposer could be in that grown zone and they're not moving forward. And that's where you're using this toolkit in order to get them to move, for them to move forward. And this is where I would like us to take a minute for our last breakout room to discuss a little bit about the model. Now it says, I think 5 minutes, but I think we can go maybe for 8 because it's 1:45, and then we come back and bring some closure. And what I would like you to do here now is think about reviewing the Cantor model, and you have a slide and an article as well. And I want you to think of positive. How does understanding these roles elevate a facilitator's understanding of group dynamics? And I give a provocation. Would you introduce this model to your team? Why not? We might have a speaker at the end to share. And also what I've done for you, if you look here, and this is for you to keep, here is an overview, it's more detailed, of each one of the models and the benefits of each one of these roles having on a meeting. And again, please note, this is just one model, and I'm here to just provide different provocations for you as a facilitator. You will find other models, but this is one that resonated with me and I thought I would share with you. So I'm going to stop share. And how are we doing? Okay, wonderful. All right, we are going to go for, again, 3 in a room. And Abby, it's now 47, so I think we can go only for about 6 minutes or so, because it'll come back like 53. So let's go maybe 7 minutes. We can go for 7 minutes rather than 5, and only 3 in a room. Think about, is it worthwhile knowing these 4 types of roles that could be in your meetings? Would you share this with your team and actually promoting the benefits of knowing that these are the different personalities? and also recognizing this is just one model. There are many out there. All right, Abby, 3 in a room for 7 minutes. It'll be 6 minutes with a 1-minute countdown, please. Thank you, Abby. Are we okay? Yes? Yes, okay, perfect.
As well.
Carrie. Welcome back, everyone, with beautiful smiles. Bring up beautiful smiles. Hello, everyone. We're down for our last 5 minutes. Thoughts about the conversation you want to share, or you want to actually share something you heard that you thought was kind of resonated with you from the conversation? Your thoughts, unmute, and about either the model, the 4 different roles that you could have on a team, or anything else that you heard before we leave. And you can just unmute, please.
In our group, we sort of said that this reminds us a lot of the 6 hats. It reminds us a lot of like the compass personalities, and how there's advantages and disadvantages to assigning roles, because people can tend to lean into them or not want to move between roles, and how it's important to sort of realize that we wear different hats at different times, and it's okay to move between roles.
And also, you might be a bystander for one objective of a meeting, like one meeting agenda, and then for another one, you might be a mover. And you have to recognize it and transition according to where or what you're doing within that facilitation. Not everyone will always be a bystander. It depends on who they are. And again, going back to culture and context, and to understand that. So, and Randy, you brought up a good point. We don't label our individuals as, oh, you're always a mover, you're always an opposer. And if someone always is an opposer, then you ask yourself why. Think about the reflection upon yourself. It's easy to say, oh, that's who they are, but we also have to reflect on who we are as a facilitator. Any other thoughts before we leave? I hope you felt, I know I've given you a lot, like, boom, how much can you get? But it's afterwards, I would love for you to unpack, and I'm always available. So let's now bring a closure. We started off with these objectives, and hoping that now that we're coming to a close, that you've been able to gain an insight of the facilitator's mindset. I have introduced the heart, the head, and the hands approach, and lastly, that you get an appreciation for the profiles. So what I would like you to do now is think about, what will you do next after you leave? And you'll notice that there is a link in the chat. Oops, I'm going to stop share for a minute because something just got blocked. So everyone see the link in the chat. What I would like you to do is, what are you going to commit to once you leave this session? What will you do? Will you perhaps look into reading the book? You might Google Grown Zone. Yes, I will put, what I will do is I'll put the book in the slide deck. So that's why everything is together. How does that sound? And this way I can put everything in the slide deck so you have it. So what will you do? So in the Google Doc, you'll notice it says, what will you do next? What are you going to do after this session? I'll put it in again. What will you do after the session to continue your learning as a facilitator? And I'll just wonderful. Making the heart. Think about my participant's position. Wonderful. Debrief with Raina. Raina, you're going to have a debrief after this, honey. Thank you, Louise. I think you're in a car. And actually, I'm going to put your comment because I think your comment's great. I'm going to put this slide deck in yours as well, so you get to see what everyone else is going to be committing to. Wonderful. So everybody, we've now come to a close. I'm going to give you one more minute to think about what will you do once this session is over to continue your learning as a facilitator. Please note, I'm going to put another link of some useful influences that are facilitators. For example, I've mentioned, I don't know if you've ever heard me talk about Chad Littlefield. He's brilliant. His YouTube is amazing. He promotes starting sessions with inquiry and questions. So if you go to YouTube and look at Chad Littlefield, brilliant. Already mentioned Michael Wilkinson. And also we have Jenny Sawyer, who's a brilliant one. So before we go, everybody, thank you for sharing what you're going to do. I have a little tradition. Everyone knows my tradition. Most people who know me know. Okay. And if you don't feel comfortable, then you just do it within your mind. I put my hands on the side because I like doing high fives. I love celebrating. I call this celebrating 11th. What does it mean? Nothing, but it's just a celebration of we being together. So hands on the side, everybody, and we're going to do a high five. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, high five. It is exactly 11 o'clock. I want to respect your time. If you can stay, I would love to take a picture of our group. If you don't want your picture, I am going to post it. I love posting on LinkedIn. So smile. Okay. Okay. You ready? Smile, smile, smile. You're wonderful. I'm going to do it again. Smile. Thank you so much. It's been an honor to have your time. Keep in touch. If you ever want anything, if we want to have a facilitators like network, let's do it. I just love it. And I love learning from each other. And now what am I going to do next? I'm going to look at all the strategies you posted and I might borrow some for my next session. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye now. Take care. Ciao, ciao.